Okay, great. So as I said, my name is Bongani Mashele. I work as an independent contractor currently for eKey, which is a small startup that's local, small startup. So this is my interest in micro-frontends was really from the buzz about microservices, which are like backends. That in the back end, you can kind of like break the monolith into small apps that maybe are specialized for certain features. That then allows you to scale easy and to be able to choose the best technology or database for your data needs rather than being locked onto one database if you have an app. So with the introduction of micro-frontends, then I was like, why micro-frontends? So obviously the front end code base is growing as we move further and further from the time when the internet became popular. The code bases are growing. I can imagine for companies like Google and Yahoo, they have huge code bases for their front end apps. So now what do you do to manage that complexity? So that's kind of like the state, kind of like the challenge. You have this huge code bases. You also have a lot of UI frameworks that come and go. Some come and go, some have stayed on for a longer time. So how do you then take advantage of maybe the new frameworks without necessarily having to undo what you've done before? So, and then like as the last point to say like no framework, one framework is best for any possible use case out there. I'm sure some of us will like to believe otherwise, but I do think that you cannot have one size fits all. You know, we all know now React is probably king of the front end, but who knows, 10, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, it could be something different. Then what do we do with this React code base that we have? It would be best to adopt a practice where we can build on what we have while taking advantage of the new toys that come into the field. So already mentioned that. So what is the possible solution for these challenges? It's micro-frontends, hence this talk. And micro-frontends are basically a microservices approach to building web apps. So like it's an architectural style. It can be implemented with different technologies and different approaches. And it's about architecture of building small, loosely coupled apps that then combine to form your whole front end app. So thinking like schematically with a monolith front end app, you may have an app that then has different components. Thinking of React and Angular, you have this different component. You have a header component that might have sub-components itself, the body and the footer. And all these things belong to the same app. Now with micro-frontends, you can have a root, you can think of it to have a root app, but instead of now the root app kind of like coordinates everything, and you have smaller apps. The smaller app could be the header. So if you're looking in the page, the header will just be an app on its own, which you can choose the technology that you would like to use. If you feel like React is the best use case for that, you use React. If maybe in the body, some section of the body, you feel like Angular has better features for your use case, you can choose Angular. The good thing is like everything is kind of like, it's broken down. So you have that independence and the freedom to choose what will work best for your use case. So why micro front ends? So I've mentioned most of these points, but maybe to go another big point that I have not mentioned, like usually we work with different teams that will be working on a huge code base. Maybe as team A is implementing feature X and team B is implementing feature Y, but the code base is hosted in the same place because it's the same app. So now team A and team B have to decide what's the tech stack. Do they want to use Angular? Do they want to use React? I suspect currently people will then have to negotiate which technology will be best. But now with micro-frontends, you can just break it down by features. Team A can say, this is our problem, and for our problem and our skill set, this is the tool that we can use. So that introduces some advantages, I think, even in terms of software management, in that as a software manager, you then have more flexibility on who to hire, because people can use the technologies that they are best in, rather than being railrolled into the technology that maybe was chosen 2, 3, 5 years ago. So how do you split apps? You can split them by functionality, split them by page. I will not go into details about that, but I've kind of like mentioned it before. Now, how are they implemented? We know Monolith, we just choose React, you have a component that's a header, components as a body and a footer. But now, how about MicroFrontends? How are they implemented? There are different ways that they are implemented. Some people use web components, and some will use iframes, and some will use libraries. There are libraries that makes it relatively easy to build micro-frontends. So one of those frameworks is Singlespire, and we'll go into a little bit more details into Singlespire. So in my kind of like exploration, what I've seen, so people are saying, iframes, for instance, have been there for a long time. What's different about them now? So then again, goes back to this idea that maybe it's not entirely new ideas, but now maybe there's a formal way that we like to approach it, and to kind of like maybe bring some more common practices. So what is the Singlespire library? It allows you to use different frameworks on a single app, on a single major app, to build these micro frameworks that you can combine to achieve whatever the business goal is. So some of the advantages is that you can write code in a new framework without rewriting old code. So React has been around for a shorter period of time compared to Ember, for instance. So now if you started at the time and you're using Ember all these years, you have a huge code base. How do you then want change to say React if you feel like React maybe can serve you best in the features that you want to implement? Under the current regime of monoliths, you might have to rethink rewriting the code. But with MicroFrontends, you can still use your Ember code and then just add your React code. So now think of the Ember code as a micro app and add more micro apps, which might be written in Angular or in React. So I highlighted this point because I think is the one that's probably most relevant, because micro-frontends are relevant only when you have a huge code bases. And when you're starting a new project, you don't have a huge code base. So then a technology that purports to help with scaling, I believe, should be able to coexist with whatever has been done before. So if it means to adopt a technology, if it means that to adopt that technology, you have to undo what you've done, then in my opinion, it's not very useful. So with Singlespire SPA, at least according to their website, they say you can use the new frameworks with like your older code base. So how do you implement Singlespire? So we have these different micro apps now. Then one of the fundamental questions is, how do these different micro apps communicate with each other? How does the header and the footer communicate? Because now they are different and they might even be written in different frameworks. How to achieve communication? So there are a couple of ways that people say they use to facilitate communication between the apps. Use the global window object, so they use the event bus, or they may even use some shared state. We'll show an example where I'm using the event bus, so I highlighted that. So what kind of like gives a show a very basic implementation, at least with Singlespire SPA, which is going to write a toy application. And this toy application will be using React and Vue. So schematically, sort of for the small print. So the big bounding box is the root application. And then within the root application, you have two applications, the micro applications, which will be Vue and React. And Vue and React can send and receive messages via the event bus. So as a communication layer, we have the event bus to which Vue and React can kind of like you send and receive data via subscribe and pops up implementation. So I'm going to go through some code snippets. The way I look at it, kind of like starting globally, what is this road app? The road app is really what connects these micro apps into our SPA framework. So this is really just the road app, where what you do, you register the micro apps that you have. Can I say? Okay. So if you register the two micro apps that you have, so here I have React and Vue. And for my React and Vue, I have the index file, which is kind of like the entry point into React and Vue. This is pretty much kind of like boilerplate. And now I go into communication. We have this road app. How do they communicate? I use a small kind of like it's very small, as you can see, like the size. It's small. What it basically does, it allows you to emit and subscribe to messages. It's basically what it does. So that's what we're going to be using for communication. So now, index.js for Vue and for React, there's boilerplate there, which then again is just to connect the micro app into our road app. And what you're doing there is sort of like you have interacting with the DOM, and you have this the road component. For in this case, I am this is the React one, so I have a road component that I'm importing from the React micro app. So when you write React, typically we have index.js where we're using we're rendering the whole application, and we might have the app, which is kind of like the main component to which smaller components in our applications fall in. So here, this is root.component is basically, you can think of it as like app. And so we're importing the app into our index.js. Now our index.js has this, we have these lifecycle methods for bootstrapping, for mounting, and for unmounting our micro apps, and all this basically is part of the Singlespire SPA. So how about the React app, kind of like the main app, where we write our React logic and so forth. And this is basically what it looks. It's a typical React application. I need to be able to communicate with Vue, hence I need this event bus. So in the event bus, what I'm doing here, I'm basically in my React application, I'm taking in text, and I'm sending that text, basically a string, to the Vue application, and like sending that data. So that's what I'm doing here, and emitting a message, and that message has a payload in it. That's basically the only difference to what you will typically write in a React component. Now, for the Vue app, I have sent the message from React to Vue. And what does Vue do? Vue is also connected to my event bus. So the Vue just listens on the message, and extract that message, and you can do different things to that message. So I'm basically calculating what is called a flash score here. It's basically manipulating the string that you're getting. Flash score is kind of like readability, how easy it is to read a piece of text is the score. And these are kind of like the screenshots of the app. So this is what it is. So from React, if I press this button, I'm sending text to Vue. Right now, this flash score on Vue is kind of the initial state. I don't know what it is because I have not received messages from the React app. If I press that button, then I can calculate the flash score. So the basic thing is really, this is like in a single page. I have two apps from two different frameworks in the single page, and these apps can communicate with each other. And I'll add more references. This is the main one that I use. I think he has a talk on YouTube about 36 minutes. It's really good, and his website has more kind of like talks and things. They're good, and there are other resources that I will add on references before I post these slides. And that will be it.
Thanks for that. Does anybody have any questions they might want to ask?
Go ahead. I was going to ask, does the container do anything to prevent global state from conflicting between the two applications?
I'm not sure about that. I would think probably there was a kind of like the consideration as one of the methods for communicating. You might have like kind of like global states. As it exists now, you really don't have global states. You just using PubSub for communication. But I can imagine probably with React, then you might have to think about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I was just wondering, like, is there any strategy for reducing the bundle size, given that now you're bundling into more?
Yep. That was one of the issues that people mentioned, and I have not seen any particular strategy that people use. You probably need to think more about bundle size and how we do this, because now instead of just having one, you having like multiple. Same, if you have two React applications, you'll be importing React and React DOM on two different places, yeah. And it's definitely one of the issues that keep propping up, and what to do with the bundle size, yeah.
Another kind of related is like, for example, React has its own strategy for server-side rendering.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how Vue does that. How would you solve that? Like, say one page you want to server render the whole thing. Now you're in different frameworks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, server-side rendering. I have not looked at it in this context, but then probably those will be interesting things to look at. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Who does the routing when there's this many apps?
Oh.
Or what's in charge of the routing, like to change the navigation to a different page?
So it would be like the root app.
Oh, okay.
Yep. The root app is what they would say. I think the single SPA website has kind of a really good documentation. It'll be a good first place to look at them.
Thanks.
Cool. Bongani, will you post these slides to the?
Yes, I'll post the slides and the small app once I've kind of like polished and added more references that I think will be more useful. Yeah, I'll post them. Yeah, thanks.
All right, that was a good one. Thank you very much. So we're going to take a 5-ish minute break. Again, there's more pizza, there's more cake, there's bathrooms. If you exit and then take a left, they're right on the other side of the elevator. Other than that, like, feel free to chit chat, socialize, have a little more lubrication, and we'll see you here in 5.